Hello everyone, welcome to this Association by Prevention and Handling of Violence in Higher Education Institutions, of short we call PPKPT of Institute Technology of Sumatra, Part 1. But before we begin our discussions, I want you guys to take the pretest first. I want to know what you know about violence, or what you know about prevent it, and how to handle it if it ever happened to you or your friends. You can click the link that's shown in your screens. It is a Google form. After that, I want to show you a video that is shared in our Instagram. You can also check our Instagram, that is Sagas PPKPT underscore Itera. You can watch our jargon there and also what is the common violence cases that happen in campus. As I mentioned before, it is association by PPKPT. What is PPKPT? In Indonesia, we call it pencegahan dan penanganan kekerasan di perguruan tinggi. But in English, we call it prevention and handling of violence in higher education institutions. Or for short, we call it PPKPT. Now, what is the legal basis of this institution? First, there is a regulation of the Minister of Education, Culture, Research and Technology number 55 of 2024 concerning the prevention and handling of violence in higher education institutions. And the second, we have the Rector Regulation of Institute Technology of Sumatra number 2 of 2022 concerning the prevention and handling of sexual violence at Institute Technology Sumatra. And why is it important to learn about PPKPT? First, we can see in the screen, according to the Inspector General of Ministry of Education, Cultural Research and Technology, of which we call it Kemendikbudristek, there is a very concerning percentage of sexual violence cases in campus. It is 49 and 70% of violence cases, especially sexual violence in campus. And also there's a bullying with a concerning number that is 38.7%, and also intolerance with the percentage is 11.6%. These figures highlight the importance of awareness and also preventive actions within the campus environment. The total reports of the cases that has happened in campus is 310 cases, and it is a very concerning number. What is the goals of this association? First, our goals is to identify common but unrecognized forms of violence within academic life. And second, we hope that everyone know how to report and also access the protection. Third, we encourage the victims and witnesses to speak up about the violence that happen in campus. Fourth, we want to build a safe and inclusive environment on campus, and also we want each one of you to become agents of change in violence prevention. And what is our function and roles? First, we have the function of prevention. To prevent any violence that can happen in campus, we collaborate with ITER's academic community through socialization and education, such as seminar and public discussions, campaign videos on educational content on Instagram, and also reporting for banners and stickers. You can find the stickers in its bathroom in Itera, and also you can find the reporting for banners in its building in Itera. Second, we also have the roles of handling violence in higher education institutions. We respond to receiving reports from victims or witnesses, but it is important to know that we do not conduct arrests or detentions, but we provide recommendation for administrative sanctions to the rector, and also we ensure victim confidentiality and protection, and we will make sure there is no mediation between the victim and the perpetrator. As it's shown in your screen, this is the banner that I mentioned before, banner about the flow to report cases, and also there is a contact number for lecturers and also for students if there's ever happened a violence cases in campus. And why are there no public cases? Because it is our jargon Two, working in silence. It, what is for? It is to protect victims so all processes are kept strictly confidential. And I was mentioning about prevention, handling, and violence, but we will look what is the definition of these terms. First, there's prevention. It is an action to prevent individuals or groups from committing violence. And second, handling. Handling is an action to respond to and manage acts of violence. And third, violence is an act, physical or not, that causes physical or psychological or sexual harm or infringe on one's liberty. And who can be the victims? It can be lecturers, faculty members, female and male students. So it's not only the female, but also male students also have chances to be a victim. And who else? It can be general community, campus workers such as security, cleaning staff, and else. What is the force of violence? Based on Article 7 regulation of the Minister of Education, Culture, Research and Technology number 55 of 2024, there are 6 forms of violence. First, it is physical violence. Second, psychological violence. Third, bullying. Fourth, sexual violence. Fifth, discrimination and intolerance. Sixth, violent policies. First, we will discuss about physical violence. What it is? It is any physical contact intended to harm with or without tools. For example, hitting, slapping, pinching, or kicking fellow students. First, pushing or pulling, using tools to threaten, physical punishment by seniors, and also intentionally creating a dangerous situation. Second, psychological violence. It is non-physical acts intended to humiliate, frighten, or discomfort. For example, mocking the accents or dialects, regional background, or physical condition to fellow members of the academic community. Second, putting on excessive mental pressure. For example, if you fail, you'll bring him to the university. It is also included in psychological violence. Intentionally excluding peers from group activities, verbally harassing others in front of the community, undermining a college ideas, work, or contribution using a sarcastic or disrespectful tone, and also intimidating participants who report violence or express dissenting opinions. It is important to know psychological violence is not always visible, but its impact can severely damage the victim's health and also self-confidence. Third, bullying. It is repeated acts of violence, including physical and or psychological violence involving a power imbalance. For example, seniors forcing juniors to do something as so-called traditions. And second, repeatedly making a specific participant the subject of jokes, ignoring or excluding someone from Tridharma or academic activities, spreading gossips, sarcasm, or personal information to humiliate someone, assigning excessive worth to only one participant under psychological pressure, and also prohibiting participants from speaking or sharing their opinions in a forum. Fourth, sexual violence. Any act that demeans, insults, harasses, or attacks a person's body and reproductive functions arising from power or gender imbalance, which causes psychological or physical suffering and hinders the opportunity to learn and work in a safe environment. For example, making inappropriate comments about a participant's body, clothing, or appearance of virtue. We also know it as body shaming. And second, touching without consent, even if it's just joking. You can just carelessly touch other people. And third, distributing private photos or videos without permission. Fourth, inviting someone to a secluded place under coercive authority, such as a senior, lecturer, village supervisor. Fifth, repeatedly making sexual jokes and giving grace or special treatment in exchange for or due sexual pleasure. And it is important to know that any act of a sexual nature without consent is called sexual violence. You can also scan this barcode that is shown in the screen. It is the illustrative examples of types of sexual violence, what so we can know what kind of act that is included in sexual violence. After that, there is also discrimination and intolerance. Any act of violence in the form of discrimination, exclusion, or restriction based on ethnicity, religion, race, skin color, age, socioeconomic status, nationality, ideology, gender, and or physical or mental ability. For examples, refusing to work in a group with participants of a different religion or ethnicity. Second is isolating students with disabilities or denying them equal access during field work. Dismissing the ideas of female participants as irrelevant because field work is for men, not for female. Assigning lighter or heavier tasks based on social status. For example, lecturers versus others. Mocking someone's accent or regional dialect, imposing specific religious practices or rituals on others, failing to provide appropriate rest or prayer space for minority groups. Other than that, there's also violent policies. A policy that has the potential to cause or lead to acts of violence, whether written or unwritten. For example, it is mandatory to night patrol duties for all participants, including women, without proper security measures or standard operating procedures during academic field activities. Second, gender-biased division of labor. Women are required to cook while men handle field work. As we know, cook is the basic survival skill that everyone needs to have. It's not specifically just for women. Cooking is for everyone. Third, prohibition on reporting internal group issues in the campus. For example, a culture of don't bring it outside. And fourth, placement in high-risk student community service or orientation location, such as limited access, conflict-prone without a safety assessment. Fifth, mandatory participation in seniority-based tradition. For example, bonding nights with elements of intimidation, also ignoring policies regarding sexual violence or bullying by community members of fellow participants. Why do perpetrators commit violence, such as bullying? Why do they did bullying? There are external and internal factors. As you can see on the screen, there are various reasons why someone commit violence. For example, for bullying, the external factors is first lack of rules and norms and lack of, for example, bullying. There is external factors why someone commit the violence. First, lack of rules and norms about enforcement on campus. Second, unresolved issues of seniority culture and also disharmony at home or within the family. And it can also because of media influence, such as impact of information technology. But there are also internal factors. First, for example, past victims of violence whose cases were not properly or fully addressed. And second, personal character traits. For example, when under high pressure. You can also see the external factors and internal factors. The You can also see the external factors and internal factors as to why someone becomes the perpetrators who commits the violence, such as for sexual violence and also intolerance. Next, I want to show you related news case that is related with violence that happen in campus. First, it is a news about a lecturer who did sexual violence in campus. The head of the Sexual Violence Task Force or Satgas PPKS at the faculty level can also be subject to sanctions if proven to have committed sexual violence. Anyone can be sanctioned if proven guilty. including people in strategic positions, and it is an important example of the institution's course in upholding justice. You can scan the QR that is shown in your screen if you want to know more about the violence that could happen in campus, especially sexual harassment. It is an ebook from PPKPT Institute of Technology Sumatera. Next, for discussions more, and also if you have any questions and answer that you need to know, you can contact our contact number. On the left, it is for the lecturer, and on the right, it is for students. Okay, before we ending our session, I want you guys to take the post test first. You can click the link that is shown in your screen. It's a Google form. And that's it for me. See you soon on our second socialization. Bye.